The Fantasy Football Heroes and Villains podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Birddogs Shorts. Dominate summer with an amazing pair of shorts and a free Yeti style tumbler when you over at birddogs.com/pool. That's birddogs.com/POOL. D-Gens assemble. Welcome back to Fantasy Football Heroes and Villains. I am your host, Justin Bruni. Joining me as always is my co-host and partner, Mr. Andrew, the TD King, Raub. How we doing, sir? Happy Tuesday.
Yes, happy Tuesday, Justin. Pleasure to be here. It feels weird not being on the bike. It feels good for the butt, but it feels bad because we're not drafting.
I don't know what to do with my arms. They're not moving back and forth. We are back with more best ball goodness, but the beers and the bikes are back in the closet. We have wrapped up our cardio draft series. I was talking to Andrew before the show. It sounds like he fell in love with the process. It sounds like he's yielded some good teams because he's talking about just keep going. He's just going to keep riding that bike like he's fucking Forrest Gump. So full D-Gen mode activated here. Tonight, we are going to be going over some risers and fallers in ADP, personally from our exposure list. So we're doing high exposure fallers and low exposure risers, guys that we've drafted a lot of that we're going to start to get off of a little bit. Maybe we've invested a little bit too much on, and guys that we haven't invested as much on. We maybe got one or two shares or maybe a small handful, but whether it be recent news or developments in our own takes in the offseason, we're going to be talking about those guys that are going to be climbing up our boards. Andrew, I'll toss it over to you first. Let's go with quarterback position, one of your high exposure fallers, someone that you've been drafting a lot of that maybe you're starting to get off of.
Oh, man. I know I talked to you a little bit before the show about this, but unintentionally, I am pretty even across the board on a lot of my exposures here. So I guess just looking at it, I have a couple guys that are tied at the top for me at 14% and a few more guys below that at 12%. Out of those guys, there's two in there that I don't feel as good about their opportunities to score touchdowns through the air, at least, maybe with their legs a little bit. But those two guys are Pickett and Jones. I'm going to focus a little bit on Pickett here. And here's the reason why. Pickett, I currently have 14% drafted. Again, that's not an outrageous number, but I do feel like Najee Harris is going to have a better year this year, which I do think will take away from the touchdown ability of Kenny Pickett, whether that be with his legs, because he's athletic. I mean, right? We saw him make the NCAA change the rule about a quarterback, sliding. So, I think the offense should revolve more around Najee Harris this year. I do, obviously, we both like Deontay Johnson. George Pickens has been getting lots of love. They have Pat Freiermuth. They just drafted big-ass Darnell Washington. So they have some guys that can catch passes from Kenny Pickett. But there's a reason he's going later on these drafts, right? I think that's kind of why I have a larger exposure on him, is because he is going later. It's easy to stack him. You don't have to worry about spending too much draft capital. But with that said, I do still think that they want to, lean on the run game a little bit more, not get into shootouts, because I don't think that the team is built for a shootout. They want to have more of a low scoring game that they can control, and they're going to do that on the ground. So Kenny Pickett for me is one guy I don't think I'm going to be taking a ton of throughout the rest of the year. Definitely get some more exposure to him, but I would like the number to ultimately at the end be somewhere around probably 14-15% like it is now.
Over under 3,300 passing yards for Kenny Pickett this season. Last year, in I believe 14 games, he had about 2,800.
I'll take the under. Now, do you have his touchdowns there by any chance?
I don't. I just made that up. Just pulled it out of my butt.
I'll take the under on that. I would be interested in touchdowns though, because I do think he can throw a lot of touchdowns, but not like a lot, like not 30, but like maybe in the 21 range, somewhere in there.
Okay. I was going to ask you 24 and a half, again,
I
just
would take
pulling
the
it
under.
out of nowhere.
Yeah,
Okay.
I take the under on that.
Well, I mean, that's a pretty good number. I mean, if you're going to, if you're like, oh, it's got to be between 20 and 24. I mean,
Mhm.
that's a tight range. Got Davis in the chat saying he heard Darnell Washington's ass is so big. His pants have the words juicy on it. Nice. Nice. Nice.
That was a solid joke.
Uh, I had
Solid
a
joke.
freshman math teacher ask a girl in my class, like, why does it say juicy on your pants? They may have said some other name like I don't know, wet or something. I don't know, whatever adjectives they were
Sweet
using in the
baby, all those
yeah,
cool ones that it was like bedazzled on the ass.
exactly. And then she had to, turn around and say, why are you reading my ass? She's like, well, it says it right there. And you were just like right in front of me. Like, what do you want? He wasn't brought back for any years after that. So
Mm-hmm.
good riddance. Can't remember his name. I did not like that guy though. But no, Kenny Pickett, I agree with that one. And I think the Steelers in general, I think they're going to be a little bit consistent on the show, whether it be high or lower exposure. Or definitely tip the cap there to Deontay Johnson. And yeah, I'm right there with you. I do feel like the team is going to focus on running the ball a lot. They're going to be very risk adverse for downfield passing. I think, you are going to be looking for some big splash plays out of George Pickens here and there. But I think as far as like Kenny Pickett's ability to get into, a top 5 quarterback week in and week out, I think you're asking a lot. I think there could be a few boom weeks. And, I think where you're drafting Kenny Pickett, you're drafting him as your like number 2 or 3 QB. If you're going like really high end with like a Patrick Mahomes, maybe you back that up with a Kenny Pickett, because realistically, how many other QBs are going to have the potential to go over the top of Patrick Mahomes unless it's some crazy circumstance? I do see Kenny Pickett developing as a passer, but I don't think that the tea leaves are, strong enough at this time for me to say like, oh yeah, like, he's definitely top consideration for top 15 QB. I have about 3 shares of him out of 84 teams. So he would be in the lower exposure range for me, but not someone that I would say like, oh yeah, I got to start drafting some more Kenny Pickett. I do love me some Najee Harris, and I'll kind of shift over to a receiver just because we're on the topic here. High exposure guy that I'm coming down from, Deontay Johnson. He is my second highest exposed receiver at this time, right behind my guy DJ Moore by about $50. He and DK Metcalf, I've spent both 475 on. That's a percentage of about 22%. And it really just comes back to the same argument that you have for Kenny Pickett. I love the value that I'm getting from Deontay Johnson. He's going in rounds anywhere like 6, 7, or 8. 8, really disrespectful, but man, I've seen it. And we were seeing it early in the offseason about George Pickens getting drafted ahead of him in a lot of formats and in the big board and in the little board drafts. So that's definitely something to look out for. I think that DJ, again, is a great value, but expecting him to, bring home like Justin Jefferson numbers, I think is going to be a bit much. Even with him getting 140 plus targets, I still feel like they may not be the most booming volume that you can get in that space. Although, again, drafting in rounds like 6 through 8, you also probably won't find another receiver that's going to get 140 potential targets. So there are some back and forth there. But myself, I've already loaded up plenty on them. So this is a very clear situation for me where I just want to divert with the rest of the market. Any other things to add on for DJ and Kenny Pickett? I know that you have DJ pretty high as well.
I do. He's 29% exposed for me. He's my highest exposed receiver at this current moment. Again, I mean, you already laid out the case for Deontay Johnson. I mean, it's all about the targets. And he's going at a really good range where, again, we always say that there's guys going around him that don't quite have that same ability to command that many targets. So DJ is somebody I'm gonna try to lay low a little bit on him just due to the exposure I have on him, but he's somebody I'm still going to be drafting throughout the year. So, I mean, I know we both like Deontay Johnson, but do you know what else I like? Birddogs, baby. They make you look so good. Birddogs stretch khaki shorts are designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg, giving you a truly sculpted look. Birddog shorts do the exact same thing as Lululemon, but fit way better. Birddogs fixed the issue by inventing cloud knit fabric that looks just like khaki but stretches, so you can get a way slimmer fit without having to sacrifice movement. Birddogs uses anti-stink sweat wicking fabric that keeps you cool and dry all day long. that really would come in handy for your boy here because I do a ton of golfing. And as you may imagine, out there on the course for 4+ hours, drinking, sweating, I can get a little bit of a odor, as we say, down in the undercarriage. So Birddogs has me covered with their, again, anti-stink sweat wicking fabric. Do us a favor, go to birddogs.com/pool and enter promo code POOL for a free Yeti style tumbler with your order. That's birddogs.com/pool for a free Yeti style tumbler. You won't want to take your bird dogs off. We promise you.
I like how you're all polite with the undercarriage talk instead of just saying that your balls smell while you're golfing in the summer. I mean, you're not golfing in October. I mean, it's a little bit of a different.
Do your balls drop off?
Exactly. It won't in Birddogs. Go to birddogs.com/pool.
Yeah, they have those built-in liners too. Gotta love it.
Nice and tight.
Nice.
All right, who's your next man up? So far, we've got Kenny Pickett and DJ. Nice little high exposure faller stack.
We still going with high exposures?
Yeah, you can switch it up anytime you like.
Let's stick with the high exposure here because there's one guy and he's on your team, and I know you know that I love him. Give me some Roschon Johnson, baby. 29% drafted right now. Again, the thing for me with Roschon ultimately is I just think he's the overall best back that Chicago has there. I think that it's going to shine through. He seems like somebody who can do everything that they want him to do. He can catch the ball. He's obviously can run the ball. I think this pass protection is probably going to need a little bit of work, but overall, like I don't think that that's going to ultimately hurt him for the lead dog position on the Bears. Deontay Foreman, fine. We saw him. You know, he's gotten hurt, right? He had one of those injuries that's usually hard to come back from, but we saw him last year be very good in Carolina. So I don't want to poo-poo him, but ultimately he's probably trending downwards, right? Khalil Herbert was there last year. Good running back, got injured, can still do everything they want him to do. But ultimately, there's a reason they drafted Roschon Johnson, right? Like, I think that they want him to be the guy. So I don't want to back off again on my exposure. I still think Roschon Johnson is, he's somebody I'm putting all my chips on this year. Like, he's a my guy. But I do realize that, again, I don't want to be like 50% of him at the, when I draft my 150. So I do realize I need to pull back the reins a little bit. I do see that there's probably an avenue for these other guys to potentially be the starters and have me be wrong. Won't happen often, people, but I will get it wrong every now and again. So I could be wrong on Roschon. So I do want to get a little bit of exposure to these other guys. And there are some other RBs going around the Roschon Johnson, ADP that I don't mind picking up. So for me, Roschon Johnson, 29%. Don't hate it, but also realize I need to pull back just a little bit.
Yeah, so I want to play the game with you here because I have our board pulled up from our last draft, and you drafted Roschon Johnson, very on brand, in round 13. So, if you are coming down on him maybe a little bit, I want to touch on some names that were drafted after him. Okay. So Roschon Johnson or Tyler Algier.
They're about the same for me. I like Algier too because he's one injury away one Bijan injury away for being a very good back on a team that wants to run a lot. So I'm on par with both of them.
Run a lot and has a very good offensive line. Did I remember that right? Yeah, they have a good offensive line. Devin Singletary or Roschon Johnson?
Again, same. I also like Devin Singletary a whole lot.
Devin Singletary is my highest exposed player, period. So I would probably have him ahead of Roschon. Jerome Ford or Roschon, another king on brander.
Again, if I could just draft all my RBs in this area, I would because I love me some Jerome Ford. I mean, give me both. I love them both. All these guys right now.
You got to pick really one. You're up. You're on the clock.
Oh man. Oh, so right now. Probably Jerome Ford only because again how much exposure I have to Roschon Johnson, but I like Roschon more ultimately. If this was my first draft, still pick Roschon.
No, but that's the whole point is like, all right, so how are we going to start to mix it up now? Because like you said, you have a lot of Roschon, Jerome Ford, a good option here. I think this one I know the answer clearly. Roschon or Raheem Mostert.
Oh, Roschon.
Yeah, exactly.
Obviously, especially because I think Dalvin Cook's going to go to Miami. So
yeah, there you go. And then let's see. The next two guys. I'm just going in order of the draft.
Yeah,
so
give me some of the wide receivers going around because here's another thing that people need to think of too is when you want to pull back the reins on some of the exposure, a good thing to do is flip the switch and go for a different position in that range. That way you're not loading up at a different player at the same position. So give me some of the wide receivers there.
I don't think you like these guys. Donovan Peoples-Jones or Roshan.
Oh, man. By that time, I probably have at least 5 to 6 wide receivers.
Right.
Probably don't need DPJ, so Roshan.
Right. Let's see. Jalen Hyatt or Roshan.
Yeah, Roshan.
Adam Thielen or Roshan.
No, Roshan for sure.
These guys are all drafted right around the Roshan pick again.
What about right before Roshan? Give me like 3 names before, because sometimes those guys fall.
Adam Thielen, DPJ, Nico Collins.
Okay, Nico Collins is I like Nico a lot, so I'd be all right with Nico there. I do think he's probably the best option to garnish targets on the Texans. So yeah,
Right.
I'm okay with Nico.
I got 3 names left: Alec Pierce, Marvin Mims, or Jaden Reed.
All of them would be in contention if I know I want to pull back the reins, because I do think that all of them have some sort of upside case. I mean, ultimately, I think we just now discovered that it's the running back there for me. I love all 4 of those guys that we talked about. So give me them all.
Yeah, I mean, I love the situation for Roshan. I love all of the love for Roshan as a Bears fan. I just think it is going to be a very middled group. The fact that Roshan has been just so pumped up, I'm getting Khalil Herbert at a little bit more value than I think you would, or at least that you're going to have in the upcoming months. Like Khalil Herbert going in round 11, I think is a bit of a steal, still with his experience and his wherewithal in the offense. Like he obviously is going to have a better read on the playbook, being there another year. And he is a guy that I still envision being, heavily used on first and second down. I think Roshan's blocking ability, and like you had said, like he's an all-around type of back. He can catch, he can block. I think that does lock him in for a potential third down role. I think the bigger issue in this debate is the presence of Donta Foreman. What is his role going to be in the offense? Who is he going to take away from more? Is it going to be Roshan, or is it going to be Khalil Herbert? I think that's the tougher question.
Well, remember, so one last thing on Herbert real quick is different coaching staff here now, not the one that ultimately wanted him before. So just another knock against him. I do agree with your Deontay Foreman case, though. I think he's more of a running back, right? He's not going to catch the passes per se. So I think ultimately he probably hurts Herbert a little more. I think those two fight for that lead dog spot to begin the year. But I think Roshan's probably the best pure pass catching back that they have. So that's one thing I lean on with him, is I do think that he carves out a role regardless. I just ultimately think that he takes that next step and becomes the starting running back some point in the first part of the year.
That's fair enough. I mean, like I said, as a Bears fan, I really hope so. I really don't have that much of Roshan, and it's probably one of those situations where I'm gonna, wait for a little bit more camp talk. Wait for things to kind of unfold a little bit in training camp, because I also don't believe he's going to have like an immensely increased cost the closer that we get to week 1. He's going in round. You took him in round 13 in this last one. I think even with a lot of hype, I don't see him cracking the top 10 rounds.
Depends. If there's an injury, I think that it will. If there's down to 2 guys instead of 3, I think that's different. But yeah, I mean,
sure.
Yeah, I think 10's probably rich. Maybe he might get to 11. That's only 14 picks.
Yeah, I mean, there's really not that much of a difference there in value.
Yep.
And if you're moving him up the board, then obviously you're getting another potential sleeper in his spot as well. So I think it can all mean good things. However, when I have been taking Roshan, I am backing him up. I'm getting either a Herbert share or I'm getting a Foreman share. I think with how late you're drafting those guys and how low exposed we are to elite running backs in the early rounds, I think that's a very good strategy to run with. Just try to catch whose ever sales are actually going to take off.
Yep.
All right, my next guy, I think we'll wrap up the high exposure guys with a tight end. Been talking him up a lot. Another Houston Texan, Dalton Schultz. And it might just be because I'm starting to lean into Nico Collins a little bit more, but it's still hard for me to believe that Dalton Schultz can't have a very, very good chance at being second on this team in targets. It's just that as the days go by and the closer we get to this season, I'm feeling like those targets are not going to be as valuable as I hope they'll be. He may have targets, but how many of them are going to be high value targets? How many of them are going to be, targets in the red zone, right? Like he's not a big body guy. He's not someone that I expect to top, 6.5 receiving touchdowns this upcoming season, but he is someone who I believe can have 80 plus catches this year. Again, probably someone with a lower ADOT. I'm really just playing the volume here. Let me see exactly the percentage. I know he's my top guy. Like he's my top tight end drafted.
I have him at 14% currently drafted.
I have him at 19%. And I think I need to trim that down a little bit. I have separated him and Chig a little bit. At one point, Chig was number 2. Taysom Hill and Tyler Conklin have still, or now have edged him by like a draft, by like a draft or two. So pretty even with those 4 players, Schultz, Hill, Conklin, and Chig. I just feel like even those 3 other guys, Okonwo, Conklin, and Hill, I think have an opportunity for some high value targets or touches, being more potential red zone threats. That's just kind of where I'm at with it. Still like Dalton Schultz a lot. I think it's a great opportunity. I think it's good value to get in on rounds 12 to 14. If I'm starting with him as my first tight end, yeah, I'm probably drafting 2 more, but I don't really feel that bad about it because I've exposed myself to higher values at obviously running back, receiver, and most likely a quarterback or 2 by that point.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any case against Schultz. I think one thing you had mentioned to me that kind of stuck with me is you think he can lead the team in targets, right? Or at least be second. I like those guys.
I think that's just a very practical take. I don't think that's like outlandish or, sensationalizing his abilities. Like,
No.
I just don't believe that, in Stroud's first year, he has to take a ton of risk by constantly trying to put the ball downfield. I think you and I both agree that they're going to try to run the ball a lot. And I think, when you're mixing in those disguised type of runs, low A dot, big body tight end. I mean, I guess I shouldn't say he's a big body tight end. He's just the tight end. He's going to have a little bit of a wider frame than some of the receivers, but you know that I like Xavier Hutchinson, Nico Collins. We're not drafting a ton of Robert Woods or Tank Dell, but I'm sure they're sprinkled in there somewhere.
I'm all over Tank Dell.
I mean,
give Tank Dell his respect.
Exposure right now. Tell me. I want to know. I got to hear how many.
20%.
20%.
Nathaniel
Tank Dell?
the Tank Dell, baby. Yes, I do.
Good
I think outside of Nico Collins, he scores the most fantasy points at the wide receiver position for the Texans.
I have $75. That's 3 entries. Hutchinson, I have 1. That sounds expensive to me. I like the narrative of go get me that guy, spending some draft capital on him. I like that. It's a good story, but man, I don't know. It's a buried group, it feels like.
Could be, but don't they feel like they kind of really just have like an open tryouts at wide receiver to kind of build the depth chart, right? Like, it's none of those guys are like, yep, we definitely know he's the one. Like, it's probably Nico Collins. Mechie was brought in last year to do something. Unfortunately, he had the cancer bout. So, I mean, it's unknown. They have Robert Woods. He's on the wrong side of 30 now. So, I mean, Robert Woods still a good player, though. So it won't surprise me if he does a lot for the Texans. But Tank Dell was just brought in by this coaching staff. They obviously like him. He's building rapport with Stroud there. He looks really good in camp as well. I just think that it's open season for them to kind of fill out their depth chart. I'm just making the bet on a really late guy I'm getting in the last 2 rounds to potentially be the number 2-ish target on the team. On a team that, for all intents and purposes, is going to be losing a lot of games probably and need to throw the ball. So I think it's a very fair bet to make is, one of the last 2 rounds.
Fair bet, you say. So who we want to put a little action on Dalton Schultz targets versus Tank Dell?
Ooh, man. I do think you probably win that one, but I'll take that bet. I'll take that.
I mean, I think I have to give you some plus odds. Like, I think
I was going to say, I think I'm going to lose that bet, but I'll take it.
Like, I would probably have to shave my head. You'd probably have to, like, come mow my lawn or something. I don't know. Like, something like less discriminating, something like that. But yeah, I think the odds are in my favor there for sure. All right, yeah. Let's swing over to our low exposure risers. But before we do, just want to let you guys know that we are brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. The Best Ball Mania 4 is here. Your boy has been drafting like a beast. Number 84 was in the books yesterday. I actually drafted two teams while live, giving out my picks with my co-host Emerson, Mr. Beery. And Underdog Fantasy is giving away $15 million in prizes. Also, Underdog Pick'em is a great way to get down on your favorite MLB and college baseball player props. There are so many ways to win over at Underdog, and it's active in a ton of states. Head over to UnderdogFantasy.com and use promo code SGPN for a 100% deposit bonus up to $100. That's UnderdogFantasy.com, promo code SGPN. Go use that promo code, guys. You're getting 4 free Best Ball Mania drafts. And I mean, if you really want to milk the extra money, I mean, I don't know. You'd have to ask Emerson, like, how many puppies that gets you, but that'll fill up your puppies pretty quick. So, whether you're doing 4 best ball manias or, cashing in on some poodles, some puppies, we're giving you that extra bankroll to attack these, these high volume tournaments that can be paying dividends.
It would be 20 puppies, by the way, if you do the quick math on $100.
Divided by 7, 100 by 7. That's too much, man.
7? What? The puppies
Isn't it
are
$7?
No, that was the poodle.
The poodle was 7. Hey man.
Yeah, puppy, poodle, chihuahua. We got all kinds of shit going on.
Those are small dogs.
Yeah.
Okay,
See, I'm not all about the small dog contest. I like the bigger dogs.
DMX.
That's right.
Yeah. That's our bark level.
I want some terror coming out of people's eyes as they look at the big dog. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Andrew, give me one of your low exposure risers. Somebody we need to get more in on.
All right. Well, let's go back to quarterback here, and for me, it's Deshaun Watson. I have currently 2%, only one Best Ball Mania team with him on it, and that is not going to fly. It completely flip-flopped for me. In the big board, when that opened up, everyone was kind of low on Deshaun Watson. I was taking the value. Then BBM came out, and Deshaun Watson's kind of a little higher than I thought he would be, but it doesn't scare me off of it. I've actually just got sniped on him a ton. Like last night, for example, did an Underdog cardio club draft by myself and took Amari Cooper. Was planning to go ahead and take Watson. He was sniped right in front of me. I still took Njoku. I still like the offense. I want a piece of Deshaun Watson. I think last year he served a raw deal, right? And that is his fault. We all know why. But again, raw deal coming in, people can unfairly look at him and say he sucked last year, right? He played 7 games? And I think 2 of them, if I remember correctly, were awful weather, very bad, high winds. Those you can kind of throw out the window. He had no offseason training with any of the guys he was throwing to because he was suspended. So there's just a lot of things that were working against him last year. This year, great. They have a great team, a good offensive line, great running back that will kind of keep people maybe in the box a little bit more for Deshaun Watson. He's obviously a good runner with the ball. He has good weapons. Amari Cooper, bring in Elijah Moore. They have DPJ, David Njoku. They have a lot of weapons there. I think Deshaun Watson is being very undervalued. And I think that ultimately he could potentially finish as a top 5 guy. And that's a guy I want to be on. So Deshaun Watson, I will definitely be in on him a little bit more if I could, stop getting sniped.
He is a tough buy at his ADP. I believe it's around pick 82. In this last draft that you and I did, he went in round 7. The quarterbacks that butt ended him were Trevor Lawrence in round 6 and looks like Dak Prescott in round 9. So a fair bit of separation there. He's kind of on an island in round 7 and no quarterbacks drafted in round 8. So I think it is a very, lobby prefaced type of situation where you really need to feel the pressure on, when it's time to take a quarterback. If you're starting to see them fly off the board, for example, there, even in that round 6, just one quarterback was drafted in Trevor Lawrence. I feel like that's going to be pretty volatile from draft to draft. You're going to see plenty of, quarterbacks drafted in round 6 or 7. It's really just about feeling the room and feeling the draft board, because when lobbies are getting aggressive on quarterbacks, I'm fading. When I see, people pulling Patrick Mahomes into round 2, I'm like, ooh, this is going to be fun. This is nice. At one point we were seeing Patrick Mahomes go as high as pick 13, right? Just from the lack of confidence in the offseason, having a little news. Now we're into, about the beginning of summer here, and you're seeing those guys go in like the end of round 2, beginning of round 3. So just like that brief window of evolution there at quarterback, you're going to see that trickle down to, QB 5 through QB 8, which Watson is sitting, I think, at QB, is it 8? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 actually in this last one.
Ooh, he's fell back a little bit, I believe.
And again, I think that was probably just this lobby. I saw someone draft Aaron Rodgers in round 5. That's an anomaly. That's not happening in most drafts. Yeah. Well, they were getting sick with it.
Yikes.
So yeah, I mean, there's going to be some variance, right? But when you see something like that, those are going to be the opportunities where you can go grab a Deshaun Watson. I really don't have any arguments against him. You did mention the weather. I will say, I think it's fair to note that the wind in Cleveland can be a bit redonkulous at times. Just being right there on the lake. I think that could be a factor, but I also have seen Deshaun Watson finish as a top 5 QB. So saying that doesn't sound ridiculous to me. That's something that I can buy into. I only have about 3 shares of him. So I think we're kind of in the same boat here. And I will say that when I have, gotten Cooper or even say Nick Chubb, and I'm eyeing Watson, I'm not taking him ahead of ADP because a lot of these top QBs, like the top 10 guys, there's no need to. Once you get down to the nitty gritty, and you're the only team that hasn't taken a QB, I really don't mind if you take a quarterback 8 to 10 picks ahead of ADP because you're just fulfilling that need and you've probably made up the value elsewhere. So I have Watson just 4.8% drafted out of 84 drafts, $100. So four drafts, 4 out of 84. I agree with you. I think that we can both do better and start to draft him with a little bit more priority. Kevin Stefanski's no slouch. Like, he is a good offensive mind. I think that with the weapons that they have, he can be drawn up for success in 2023. Like, I don't think that's a far-fetched take. I will shift over to the wide receiver position. What are your thoughts on the Tyreek Hill situation developing down there in Miami? Is it time we start prioritizing Jalen Waddle a little bit more?
Man, I don't think so. I just read before we got on the pod that it was a slap in the back of the head to one of the crewmates on the ship that he was on. So I'm not sure. I honestly, it said in the story that the guy didn't want to press charges at the time. I think he probably thought about it and thought, you know what, if I do that, I can probably get a little bit of a payday here, right? This dude's not paying taxes down here in Florida. He got some dough. Ultimately, I think it's just going to come down to Tyreek Hill's going to give him a little bit of money. It's going to go away, and we're going to not think about it the rest of the time. So I'm going to say it's a no story. Yeah, I don't know. The more I read into it, it kind of seems like it's like okay, this guy can give me a little bit of cash.
All right, so then let's talk about Tyreek Hill as a top 3 option. Can I get him at pick 7 now?
I don't think so, unless people hate him.
I mean, I don't know, man. People react to this stuff,
Sure.
pretty immediately. Like, I expect if I go into a draft this evening, I'm going to see him probably fall to pick 6 or 7.
Take the dip. Bye.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Waddle, I have only drafted, let's see. Oh, of course, the one guy I didn't write my percentage down for. No, I have it here. 3.6% out of 84 drafts. Not a lot. I still feel like we should be getting in on him more. I feel like his cost is too high. Do we see a dip from Waddle? Obviously, yeah, maybe, people, watch some of the Twitter news and they react to Tyreek Hill for a handful of days. But do we actually see Waddle fall at all and get him at a little better value? Because him going in round 2 it's pretty rich. But I mean, when you look at what he did, last season, pull up his numbers here, he still improved from the season prior. Like, his numbers have still progressed.
Yeah, they're a team that's pretty concentrated on just their 2 wide receivers. So that makes sense. They're kind of like the Bengals, right? The Bengals are also a team that concentrates on, Chase and Higgins. So it's very concentrated target dispersion there. So I think that's fine. I just looked. I have 6% drafted of Hill, 12% drafted of Waddle.
Interesting. So the vis-a-vis, as they say.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, interesting. I mean, I want to start taking some more Waddle. Let me see if I can pull up Hill. He's not really in this conversation, but let me see where I have him. I'm pretty sure I have a lot more of him.
You can just search it, right?
Sorry, I was just doing the old scroll. I got up to it. I got Tyreek at 10.8, $225. So I believe that's 4, 8, 9 drafts, 9 out of 84. And for Waddle, I just have looks like 3. I think I need to revert that a little bit, just because of how high powered the offense is and how it's based on speed, the deep ball. I think I need to kind of make that flip a little bit. Just kind of shows you how many times I'm getting that top 5 exposure.
Yep.
No big deal. No big deal. All right, who's the next guy up for you?
Oh yeah, let's take a wide receiver here as well.
Okay.
There's a couple guys down here that I look and I'm like, you know what? Like, I would like to get some more. It's really about the offense for me, right? So one guy that, and we had just touched on this the other day, that I have a pretty low exposure on, but I think actually has some downfield threat capability and potentially, higher touchdown rate is Alec Pierce. Okay. Alec Pierce, and this conversation is just kind of hinging on we think it's going to be Richardson there, at quarterback, right? So we talked the other day about what Richardson's potential yardage could be thrown for the year, and how we think the disbursement's going to be between Pittman and some of these other guys, right? I think Pittman's more of a possession receiver kind of role here for them. Someone
Agreed.
across the middle, someone that's going to be within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage, catching these balls that are contested, a little bit used in the red zone, right? I think Alec Pierce's strengths are going to be down the field, and Richardson, obviously, we know can throw a ridiculous ball down the field. I do think that there is potential for him to catch some long passes. Kind of, think of like Rashid Shaheed last year, right? He had a couple of games that just bombs downfield, catching them. I think he had 2 touchdowns one game. I think that some of those boom weeks are very possible for Alec Pierce. So again, I have currently 2% drafted, which is 1 entry with Alec Pierce on it. I need to bump up those numbers a little bit. The problem is I don't want to take Anthony Richardson a whole lot. Like I believe that he could do what people says he can do. I'm just not really buying into it for myself. I think it's possible. I just don't want to buy it. But I do think Alec Pierce has some sort of value to him. So I do want to draft him more, but that does not mean I'm going to be drafting more Anthony Richardson. But yeah, Alec Pierce, 2% for your boy.
Yeah, I have no argument against that. If anything, I do need another situation where I need to make the flip. Michael Pittman, another guy on my list for high exposure that I want to come down from. That's another situation where I just feel like, you know what? I'm still buying in on that offense. I still believe in Anthony Richardson. Let's just go to the wide receiver 2 here. Let's make a bit of a shift. Let me see how I'm panning out there. I can already tell you Pittman's high, $475, just as much as Deontay Johnson, DK Metcalf, and just a smidge higher than my boy CD Lamb. Not your boy, my boy. Alec Pierce, let's go ahead and nope, it's not going to let me search for it. Let me just scroll really quick. He's at the bottom. I know he isn't getting drafted a ton by me. Alec Pierce, $100, 4 shares out of 84. So
Okay.
Again, a good situation where I feel, making that flip, will have a profitable return. And I'm also flipping ADP, because Michael Pittman is going around, around 6 through 7, very similar to Deontay Johnson and DJ Moore. Let me pull up Alec Pierce. I believe he was close to you in that round 13. Yeah, round 13. So I'm also flipping that ADP. Maybe I can start to get in on some running backs that I may feel like I want to bring up the board. A la segue Cam Akers. Just one share of Cam Akers. And now that they've signed Sony Michel, I'm going to buy the dip, baby. He's going in rounds, let's say 6 and 7, kind of in that similar range. I think I can get him 8 to 9, maybe.
We're in the same wavelength. I also have only drafted Cam Akers once.
I think we got to start doing it. I don't think Sony Michel's any sort of competition. If anything, I feel even more confident taking Cam Akers now.
Sell me on him. I just can't. I can't get the stench of him out of my mind from last year.
Sure. I don't think their offensive line is very good. I think that he's going to have to catch some passes out of the backfield, and they're going to need to develop the short game. And I think he's going to be a big part of that. When your offensive line is bad, ISO downhill, run that thing up the middle as hard as you can. I think that he is in line for a fair amount of work. I like Zach Evans as well, but all signals point to Cam Akers being the lead ball carrier for them this year. Again, I don't think that Sony Michel is a huge threat. I like Zach Evans to get mixed in here and there, but I think that Cam Akers is going to be a good power runner for the Rams. Like I said, I don't love their offensive line, bottom 5 in the league. Not that dissimilar from what my Bears were last year, but they were still able to run the ball. And that's a great way to keep your quarterback upright, to protect Matt Stafford and, develop a clean pocket for him. And then, of course, develop the play action, which, Matt Stafford has thrived in his entire career. So I think that he's just going to be a big asset for the offense in general. I mean, the easiest thing for him to come clashing down is if they go out and sign another running back, but I don't see it. I see Sony Michel just being a piecemeal addition here, someone that can come in and reprieve a Cam Akers or a Zach Evans in the event of, just rest.
So you're not worried about Kieran Williams or Zach Evans, the newly drafted Zach Evans?
No, I like him. I don't think that he's going to threaten Akers for volume touches and high value touches like in the red zone. Like, I don't see any of those guys stealing the ball from him inside the 5.
Okay, fair enough.
And it's still an offense that I like. It's a very underrated offense in June right now. I think that we're going to have a different tone about the Rams, come closer to week 1.
Yeah, no, I don't hate Akers. I just last year he was so incredibly bad until the last
Mhm.
4 games of the year, 3 games of the year, then he went off. I don't know. I just have a bad feeling that it's going to
Mhm.
happen again. It's just
No,
he's just going to fall off immediately. He's going to fall out of favor. They're going to try out these rookies and the second year guy,
mhm.
and just kind of Akers will just mix his way in. He might even be traded. That's probably in my
Ooh,
mind. If I want
ooh.
to draft him, I want him to be traded to a team that maybe will need him at some point. I don't know. I
I
think the
don't.
Rams
I
will
want
throw the
him to
ball.
be buried in ADP. I think if he gets traded, people are going to start moving him up the board.
Yeah,
If he gets
that's
in a
true.
decent spot, like if he goes to like we're always talking up the Chiefs or the Bills, if he went somewhere like that, round 5, probably round 4. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like James Cook, who? You know what I mean? I think he's going ahead of James Cook right now.
yeah,
Let me
it's
pull
true.
this up. James Cook went in round 8, and Cam Akers went in round 6.
I'd rather take James Cook.
Well, I would too. I have been. That's what we've been doing. That's what we're telling you, folks. But I still feel good about getting in it now because I do believe there is going to be a bit of a market dip because of Sony Michel. I don't think that should be the case, but I think that because Sony Michel carries a smidge of a name brand, I believe he won a Super Bowl with Tom. I feel
He
like
did.
there's some name brand there. People are going to be a little bit more familiar with him and be like,
Sony
kind of,
Michel is returning to the Rams, correct? He was there before.
yeah, he was there with.
Because he won 2 Super Bowls. He won back to back, I believe.
I guess I forgot about that.
I think he won. Didn't he win with the Rams and with the
I know that he's coming back
Patriots?
to the Rams, but I don't remember if he was on the Super Bowl
Okay.
team off the top of my head. But
Yeah.
like I said, I think it's a good situation to get in on. I think that they're going to need the run game. He's still their most established guy, and they're verbally committing to him. They're talking him up right now. I mean, again, it's OTAs, but I just like the fact that they went out and signed somebody that I don't believe is going to threaten for touches and has that, like I said, that smidge of name value. I think we're going to get back around, maybe 2 if we're lucky. It's going to depend on your lobby, but I do see a reality where you walk into some lobbies and you're getting them, now in round 8 or 9 even.
Mm-hmm.
Someone I can see falling that I'm going to buy the dip. Let's go with a tight end, low exposure riser. I can't pick between the two. What are your thoughts on Irv Smith Jr.? I'll throw him out there. I just have one share. He's going in rounds 13 to 14. You don't have to spend a lot on this guy. Is he someone that's going to climb the board for you? Like, do you see him going up in the rankings?
Potentially, yes. Good offense. The Bengals have shown that they want to use their tight ends. So I do think that there's opportunity for him. The bad thing from me for him is that, again, we just said this, they're very concentrated with their targets. It's Chase and Higgins, right? With that said, Boyd does mix himself in there. That will hurt Irv Smith as well. I don't think I think if he pays off this year, it's touchdowns. It's that they use him in the red zone. He's getting to some touchdowns. I don't see him getting a ton of yardage throughout the season because, again, I think that's going to be all the wide receivers that end up doing that for them. But I do think his upside is touchdowns. I think where he's going right now is ADP and everything makes him a fair value bet, right? Like that's, again, like a guy that could potentially score you 6 to 8 touchdowns. If he does that, he pays off his ADP high because, again, I mean the tight end, after the first 6 or 7, it's kind of a little desolate. So I think that, I think it's a good bet. I'm currently at 12% on him. I do usually try to stack him with Burrow. I think I have a couple of naked shares of him because, I usually do some 3 tight end builds when I'm taking guys that late. But yeah, I think it's fine, right? I think he's a good, fair value bet.
It's tough for me. Like I said, I've only taken him one time, but I have this feeling that I need to start prioritizing him more. It's just the skill set's always been there. To me, my biggest concern is health. Honestly, like if he's healthy, I think that he could be a better option than Tyler Boyd. I like Tyler Boyd a lot, but Tyler Boyd's the oldest of that group. He's going to be, another year older, another year slower. Nothing against him. He's probably 20 times in better shape than I'll ever be, but the math on him, maybe not be in his favor for, getting, again, another year older. Irv Smith, he's got the injury woes, maybe he's not even there week 17 to bring home the cash. I do strongly and firmly recommend drafting 3 tight ends when rostering Irv Smith Jr. for sure. But someone that I've been going back and forth with it. you didn't really sell me enough, unfortunately. I think I'm going to have to do some more homework on him, but definitely a name that I was like, he's at the bottom there. I like all the things that you had said. I like the offense. It's a pass heavy offense. Nice kind of a free stack. If you draft Burrow, it's not going to cost you anything. You're not rushing to the well to double up on, Higgins after you've already drafted Chase. I could see a lot of builds where you have Burrow, Boyd, Chase, and Smith. I wouldn't hate that if you want to go, super Bengals, that is,
Yeah.
I've done that with some other teams before. It's not a bad team to do it with, especially with their potentially high scoring week 17 correlation with Kansas City Chiefs.
Yes.
We're looking for over 100 points, people. All right. We've got time for one more. Who's your last guy? Wild card. You can go high, low exposure, any position. What do you got for me?
You know what? Let's do this. I'm gonna take a low exposure tight end, like we just talked about.
Okay.
But it's a guy that is drafted high in drafts, which is probably why I have a low exposure on him, and that's Mark Andrews.
Okay.
So Mark Andrews, again, the reason I don't have a lot of exposure to him is because he's being highly drafted, and I just see the value of other tight ends going later that can still put up boom weeks, right? So I realize that Mark Andrews ultimately will probably still be the number one target on the team. I know they brought in OBJ because that's what Lamar Jackson wanted, but he also wanted Hopkins, and they didn't land Hopkins. So OBJ is not what he used to be. I don't think that he's just going to come in and command 20% of the targets, right? The guy that kind of scares me off of maybe making Mark Andrews the number one on the team is actually Zay Flowers over Rashad Bateman. I think Zay Flowers is being undervalued. I think that he has a wide variety of outcomes, but the most likely one is the downfield threat that scores a bunch of touchdowns for them. So I think there's some things that work against Mark Andrews. But with that said, it's Mark Andrews. I mean, he's a great tight end. He's fantastic. Lamar Jackson, trust him. He realizes that he has sure hands. He knows that he can rely on him, right? Like it's his guy. So I do think there's still value in taking Mark Andrews there. And I do think that he should still work up, anywhere between 15 to 20% of the targets himself. So I still think there's value of Mark Andrews. What say you about the highly drafted Mark Andrews?
I mean, I'm excited for him. I definitely have some investment here. I have $125. That's 5 shares. Guys with similar exposure for me. He's kind of like in the middle of the group.
I can't remember if I said or not. I have 6% drafted.
I have 6% drafted as well.
Okay.
So ahead of him, same value, TJ Hawkinson, same amount of shares. But guys, just a smidge ahead, Gerald Everett, Jelani Woods, Juwan Johnson, Dawson Knox, Cole Kmet. So obviously the later ADP guys. I'm right there with you on the cost. Like Roundtree, like that's pretty expensive. In our last draft, he was butt-ended by Breece Hall, DK Metcalf, and Amari Cooper and Calvin Ridley. A lot of players I expect to have more touches come the end of the season and or more targets or scoring opportunities. He could have the most touchdowns. He should have more touchdowns than Amari Cooper and Calvin Ridley, I would hope. And like in a tight end one season for Mark Andrews, where he's maybe potentially actually dueling Travis Kelce for the title. Still kind of hard to do with his target share, but if it's going to happen, like that's why you're drafting him there. Like you're drafting Mark Andrews in round 3 because you believe he can actually go over the top of Travis Kelce. If you don't believe that, you should not be drafting him right there. And it's going to be hard not to because he's constantly going before Lamar Jackson, which I believe happened in this last one. It's very difficult to stack the two together. I think that's really when you want to try to do it. Like if you really feel like you're going to be able to stack those two, then I think you target Mark Andrews at ADP. But if not, I think you need to back off. If you can get him in the turn, maybe like 2-3, I still think that's rich. I think the turn of 3-4 is probably the most ideal situation because you could potentially land, a Justin Jefferson, a Josh Jacobs, and then Mark Andrews and Lamar Jackson. I don't think that's a bad start. It's balanced. It's it's not what we do.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
It's balanced, and I think it's a good start to one of these drafts for a high volume tournament.
Yeah. And again, like, just looking at the exposures, you just went, through some of the guys that you have around the same percentage as Mark Andrews. And a lot of the guys I have around the same percentage are guys that are going higher drafted, such as Dallas Goedert, Evan Ingram, Kyle Pitts, Travis Kelce. Those are all within 2% of Mark Andrews for me. So again,
That's
it's just
good.
the way I draft, right?
Right.
We all have the way we draft tight ends. I know I need to get exposure to some of these elite guys, but I like to take them a little later or find the values of ones that drop that are mid-tier guys. I'd rather take those guys all day.
Yeah. So Knox, Komet, Kelsey, and Pitts all had the same amount of entries too. I guess I'm paying through those.
Yep.
Kyle Pitts, head of that group. Let's go, Kyle Pitts. Awesome. All right. Any other names you want to drop before we head out of here?
No, I think we covered a lot. Man, we could talk about this all day long. There's definitely guys I have high exposures on that I'm like, you know what, I should probably drop that down a little bit. But
slow down in the corners.
Yeah.
All right, very good. Well, we are going to head out. We will be back with another show this Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern. Be sure to check back in. We also have more Dynasty coming up with Dave and Brad. Be sure to check out their show. They'll have one dropping on Spotify here. I believe they just dropped one tonight, and they'll have another one here in the next couple of days. So be sure to look out for that midweek content. I know we got Gary on Friday and on Saturday with some good IDP gems going over to the IDP market. And then Emerson and I will also be back on Sunday, going over some more Dynasty content. So be sure to come ride with us. Any shout outs for the network, Andrew?
No, man, I think you covered it all. I'm excited about, what's on the arise for SGPN, man, and the fantasy football division. We have a lot of stuff in the works. Can't wait to get to the expo. We were talking about that a little bit today. I'm very excited to get to the expo, meet people in the industry that I just see on Twitter, get our name out there, do some fun stuff, do the party. So the expo is on my mind pretty hardcore right now because we are, it's going to be here before we know it.
Yeah. I'll have a kid by then. We'll be smoking some stogies, getting the group picture on like we just won the Stanley Cup. No big deal. Take care. Be well, everybody. Come back next episode on Thursday, and of course, same time next week. Take care. Be well. Be good. If you can't be good,